Right, okay, so it's 1 o'clock, let's get going. Hi everyone, thank you very much for tuning into this week's Webinar Wednesday. Some of you might know me already. My name is Stephanie Fox from the Network One, and I'll be moderating the webinar today. I've got the rest of the team on the call. We have Julian Boulding, Paul Squirrel, and Lizzie Gold, so they're on hand if you want to ask any questions. I'm just going to go through some very quick housekeeping before I introduce our speakers. Timings wise, I'll now give a 5-minute introduction. Our speakers will talk for about 35 minutes. Right at the end, we'll have a 15-minute Q&A, and we are aiming to finish by about 1:55 London time, so you can be ready for your next appointment. Now, please, everyone, keep your microphones muted at all times. If you're going to be asking a question, we'll unmute your microphone. That being said, please keep your videos on so that our speakers have some friendly faces to present to. As I mentioned before, our Q&A portion won't be until the end. So if you think of a question while the speakers are talking, just send them directly to me in the chat. So to do this, just go to your chat box, and where it says to, there's a drop-down menu, and select me, Stephanie Fox. I'll go through all of the questions, and I'll select some to ask our speakers once they have finished speaking. So all of the questions should be sent to me in the chat box rather than, by email or to everyone or whatever, just so they don't get lost. If you would like to ask the speakers the question yourself, just type, I'll ask in brackets and I'll call on you. If you would prefer for me to ask, that's fine, but just say so. Hopefully your Zoom viewing mode is set to speaker view. If not, just click speaker view at the top right of your screen. Our speakers will be sharing slides on their screen, which hopefully you can see now. If you can't see their speaker window when they start talking, just select Show Active Speaker Video. If you have any technical issues, you can message my colleague Lizzie in the chat, or you can email her at lizzie.gold@thenetwork1.com. We're recording this webinar, so there's no need to take notes if you'd prefer not to. And if for any reason we have an issue and the system crashes, just wait a couple of minutes and log back in with the same link that you used to log in this afternoon. Thank you very much, especially if you've heard that before. Thanks for your patience. I'm now excited to introduce our speakers. So Ran Blayer is co-founder and CEO of Percepto, an online reputation management firm based in Tel Aviv. Percepto helps organizations, brands, and high-profile individuals worldwide create an online presence that accurately represents who they are and what they do. Ran has been leading Percepto since 2012. He has 15 years of experience in digital marketing, online reputation management, and SEO. Over the years, he's developed digital strategies for many multinational companies and high-profile clients. Ran will be joined by his colleague, Ella Levenbach. As head of content, Ella oversees content strategy and development for Percepto and its clients. Her job is to help them tell their story online, figure out their voice and tone, clarify their messaging, and make sure it gels with the overall brand language. It is also Ella's birthday today, so I hope you will all join me in wishing Ella a very, very happy birthday. In this webinar, Ran and Ella will talk us through how to master your personal brand, and will offer practical tips and first steps to getting it right. And without further ado, I will now turn over to Ran and Ella from Percepto.
Hi everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Ran.
I'm Ella.
And thank you, Stephanie, for the kind introduction. And thank you also, Julian, for giving us the opportunity to share our knowledge with all of you, the Network One community. Let's get going. What happened? Wait a second. Yeah, so really quickly about us, Stephanie just gave you a short introduction. So we're Percepto, we've established in 2007, and the main thing we do is to help our clients to gain control over their online presence and to best promote their key messages and agenda. We're located in Tel Aviv, but most of our clients are international. We work in various languages. with both B2B and B2Cs, which are mainly high net worth individuals and business owners. And typically our clients approach us when they have an online reputation challenges or when they need to improve their online presence or to start establishing one. Today, we would like to use our experience with these type of clients to give you some practical tools to establish and improve your personal brand, whether you already have one or just taking your first steps. As for the agenda, I will start with this very basic question: why is it important to build a personal brand? What makes an online personal brand effective? I think this is something that would be quite useful to discuss. And we'll also discuss some of the challenges that I think as business owners and agency owners we all share. And not only discussing those challenges, but also try to give very practical advice on how to overcome these challenges and really succeed in working on our own online branding. And obviously we'll be more than happy to have questions in the end of this session and to have an open discussion with you guys. So let's start with why is it important to build a personal brand? Now, to my opinion, these are the main points that we should take into account. So first of all, business development. When a potential client are looking for information about you, or when you are proactively reaching out to clients or strategic partners, you would like to make sure that you're being presented in the best possible way and that your online image reflects the unique experience and know-how you have. So that's probably the most basic thing. It's also very important to know that a good personal brand show your current and potential clients and also your own staff that you're an expert in your field. That goes without saying. Another important point is the fact that if you don't build your online brand, the internet will. You need to have control, you need to take control over it. And you need a personal brand not only to promote your messages and tell your story, I would say, but also to fight potential negative coverage or any type of potential crisis if and when occurs. And I think we should all remember that your reputation and your reputation as an agency leader influences your agency reputation as well. So that's probably an important thing to take into account. And the last thing, I would say that creating another voice and another asset gives your agency another channel to express its values in a different way and makes your agency more accessible. It is also broadens and diversify your agency voice, and in times of crisis like we just experienced during COVID-19, for example, people want to connect with people, less with brands, and they will be, I think, more open to getting messages from you, from you as an agency leader. So these messages will probably get better engagement with your target audiences.
Mm-hmm. So now that we've established why it's important to have a personal brand, let's try and talk a little about how one could make it effective. But before we get into that, I'm going to try and show you a video. Let's see if I succeed.
Evening, everyone. That I would jump online quickly and just check in with everyone, really, as we all prepare to hunker down for a few weeks. Excuse the casual attire. Can be a messy business putting toddlers to bed, so I'm not in my work clothes, so forgive me for that. I do just want to prepare
Okay, so you've probably all seen this video, and the reason I'm showing it because, I mean, I just watched it with fresh eyes and thought to myself, what am I seeing here? I'm seeing a prime minister addressing her nation in a time of extreme crisis where no one knows what's going on, and she's wearing a jumper and using her cell phone. That's a very rare thing to see, and it was super effective. And when I asked myself why it's so effective, the answer I came to is that, first of all, I believe her. It feels authentic, and she's giving me something that I deeply need. I need empathy. I need clarity, and I need common sense. And if we take a step back and we look at Jacinda Ardern's personal brand in general, we see something that we kind of probably taking for granted now, seeing as she's so popular and one of the most influential people in the world right now. But it's actually very rare. I mean, she's a woman, she's under 40, she's a new mother, she's unmarried, and she's a very powerful leader. And I think that one of the ways that she managed, or one of the elements that contributed to her ability to do this, is that she puts herself out there, her authentic self. She uses her personal life or her personal traits in a way that supports her personal brand and her agenda. And it creates something very clear and something very accessible in the way that she communicates and in what she does in general. So putting yourself out there, of course, can be done in many various ways. And we've collected a few examples here just to show you how many different ways one can tackle this. Okay, let's start off with Mr. John Legere, former CEO of T-Mobile. His personal brand is very colorful. He brings together three main elements. First of all, his eccentricity and his humor. Okay, you can see it in the fact that he took on the pink as his color, and his humor is very evident in most of the clips and in the marketing elements that he participates in. Secondly, he's very healthy. He's a competitive runner. He takes care of himself. He goes out for a run probably every day. And thirdly, maybe most importantly, he's a very sharp businessman who managed to take T-Mobile to a new level. And by creating this brand, he not only got exposure for himself, he also elevated the brand, the T-Mobile's brand in general, and helped differentiate the brand from competitors. Another interesting online brand, which is similar but different, is online personal brand, is that of Ginny Dietrich, founder of SpinSucks, which is a PR and communication agency that also provides training to professionals in this field. The brand that she built is very focused on thought leadership. She's got a very content-heavy and useful blog. She also runs a podcast. She's got a blog on the company website, and she provides a lot of information from one PR expert to another. The message that she's giving us is, I'm one of you, I'm just like you, I'm an expert, I understand you, I can help you. And in order to strengthen that message from a personal side, if you take a look at her very interesting Facebook profile, you'll see that, for example, during COVID-19, she's been publishing a personal journal from a personal life on a daily basis. I see that as a very clever move. Her writing is captivating, the engagement is very high, and she combines personal stories with professional difficulties. It really creates a connection, and it proves that she knows what she's doing. So what do these two personal brands have in common? First of all, in both cases, we see people who already know how to tell a story that draws us in and that draws our attention. We have rich and layered personalities presented to us. They seem to us to be based on the truth. There's something authentic about them. And they both practice the very important storytelling principle of show, don't tell. They don't tell us, I'm very good at what I do, I'm an expert, look at me. They just show us that they know what they're doing, and they pull us in without sweating too much. However, there's always, there's always, what did I want to say?
Different examples.
Yes, they're different examples, because if we look, for example, at Brian Dean, who's the founder of Backlinko, a very successful SEO agency, he practically breaks, I think, all the rules I just spoke about. His personal online brand is flat. All he talks about is SEO. He gives SEO advice. He talks about the SEO tools that he uses. All the images that you see of him online basically look the same. Him looking at us directly with his deep blue eyes and smiling with his perfect teeth. And somehow it still works. Why does it work? It works for three reasons, in my opinion. First of all, it's extremely clear and practical. He gives advice that I can implement immediately. Secondly, he tells us to do what he does, okay? And he gives us everything. He doesn't hide, he doesn't give us just a hint and then manipulate us by saying, contact me and I'll tell you more. He gives us what we need. He just puts it out there. And thirdly, he's transparent. In other words, he does get personal, but just on a professional level. If you'll see here at the bottom on the right-hand corner, we see an email that he sent out to his mailing list during I think around the beginning of the epidemic. We really went into detail about the difficulties that his company is experiencing and how they're tackling it. And it really felt like a letter from him to me. There was something very comforting about it. So even if what you're willing to show online is only the professional, that's okay, because you can do that in a way that looks authentic as well. To sum things up in this section, the key, in our opinion, is to put yourself out there, but yourself can be any version of you that you please, as long as it's clear to you and you know what you're doing.
Thanks, Ella. So we know we need to get to be realistic here, because for the most of us, our personal online branding is far from being perfect. We know that. And to be honest, even my own personal branding is, how should I say it? It needs to be improved.
We're working on it.
Yeah, we are. We are busy with our clients and we try to give them the best possible service, and busy with scaling and growing our agencies. And as agency leaders, I think that we share similar challenges. Which is, first of all, time. We're constantly finding enough time, and then to find our own voice. We know that personal branding is important, but we need to find our own voice, one that will feel comfortable to us, and would best serve our targets, and above all, we need to step out, and we need to put ourselves out there and start implementing. And but even when you find the time and you find your voice and you have enough courage to put yourself out there, you still need to know what is the best way to do it, and what is the best implementation strategy, and what are the best platforms and channels you should use. And obviously there are many. And it's also not enough, because to build an online profile, you need to actively, in most cases at least, you need to actively maintain it on a regular basis. So how can we juggle with all these different tasks? We need to be aware of the different implementation options, to have an organized working methods, and also to get some practical tips and hacks. And I think it is good time now to start discussing these points, and eventually we hope that until the end of this session, you'll have some extra knowledge about what can be done practically in order to start working on your online branding.
Okay, so on that note, let's get started. Let's get practical. So how can we actually make this happen? Well, as we see it, the first step is to try and figure out who you are. Quite a daunting question, but we've developed a tool that we find very useful in trying to find a good answer to this question. So what I'm going to show you in a few seconds are a few examples from a long list of questions that we've developed. After this presentation, if you'd like to receive the full list of questions, we'll share our emails, or that you can ask Stephanie if you don't manage to find them, and we'll happily send the kit to you. Before I show you the questions themselves, it's important for me to point out that if you decide to go on this journey, the first step is for your eyes only. It's nothing that you're going to put out there. It's just a tool to help you develop a lot of material that you can later use to mold your public persona. Okay, so when you're working on these questions, I invite you to go into extreme details, to go wild, to let your mind be free and just write whatever comes up and be as specific as possible. So the first section of questions is questions that we'd like you to ask yourself. Here are just a few examples. How would you describe yourself to a stranger picking you up at the airport? What would your TED talk be about? What would you never want to change about yourself? And the questions go on. I think there are about almost 15. It's a challenging task. The next list of questions, these are questions that we would like you to ask someone else, someone that you feel comfortable asking, someone that you trust, in order to get an external perspective about yourself. So here are just a few examples. What types of issues would you turn to me with? Which topics can I go on and on about? What makes my eyes light up? This is a good one if you want to figure out like areas that are easy for you to talk about or areas of interest, and maybe you'll discover something new. Answers can be surprising. The third section is questions to you about your audience. But of course, that if in this section someone encounters questions that you don't know how to answer, it's a really great opportunity to get in touch with your target audience in order to get the answers. So once you've gone through with this, hopefully you have a very dense document full of words and ideas and, I don't know, 10 pages long at least. My recommendation is to just put it aside for a while, take a break, and then come back and look at it with fresh eyes, because we're going to start on the next stage, which is trying to mold your persona. So now when you're meeting this document again, what I would like you to do is, first of all, to come with a curious approach, to be curious about what you wrote. While reading, I'd like you to pay attention to two things. First of all, your style of writing. Do you use long sentences, short sentences? Do you write like you talk, or is it actually very different? Are there areas that you write about again and again? Do you remember what was easy for you to write about? What was difficult? Which pieces of content do you really like? What surprises you in your writing? Just keep all sorts of questions like those in mind. And while reading, highlight anything that makes you feel proud, anything that makes you feel good about yourself. Then the next step is to take all these highlighted sections and put them into the persona template, which we will also happily send together with the questions. The persona template is a really important document. It's basically the key to your online persona. It's a document that one can come back to again and again in order to remember what I stand for, what are my values, what messages is it important for me to convey. Furthermore, later we're going to talk about the importance of delegating in order to keep up one's online brand. Such a document makes it much easier to get other people's help. And health. Health is important, but I was referring to health. Yeah.
All right, thanks. So now that we have a clear picture of how you would like to be present, or you would like to present yourself, and what would be the public persona you feel comfortable with, I think it's time to look at the implementation strategy. Now, in an ideal world, we would like to do everything. At least those of you are not afraid of overexposure, I would say. So to manage multiple, so it would be to manage multiple social media accounts, have a blog, interviews, host a podcast, everything. Bear in mind that using multiple types of platform is important because it allows you to tell a diversified story about yourself and display sides of your persona, reach wider target audiences. It also helps you to gain better control on Google first page and have a more natural looking digital footprint, which is quite important. By the way, just to be more specific, Google prefers displaying a variety of search results on the first page. So for example, just general example. So if there were 2 articles about you on PR Week, it is most likely that just one of them will rank well for your name search. But if there is one article about you on PR Week and the other one on Ad Age, there is a greater chance that both of them will appear on Google first page. So this is just something to take into consideration. There are many platforms to choose from. Some are less and some are more time consuming. The key is to choose the platform that are right for you and for your messages and for your audiences, as well as fit to your resources and time limitation, which we'll address soon because it's also very important. Right. So it's important to be realistic and choose your platforms wisely. And I would say that you should always start gradually by using platforms you feel comfortable with. Make sure you can effectively maintain those channels, and only then start using additional ones. So some of the platforms that I'm going to speak about now requires an ongoing maintenance, while in others there is actually no maintenance required. So I think creating a good mix of web platforms is probably the best approach, at least to start with. And let's start being very practical now. So I think that the most low-hanging fruit would be your own company website. In most cases, you would have your biography. It could be the About section or Management section. In many cases, you can see just one page that just includes all the different management members within this page. Our recommendation would be get your own personal page with a unique URL and a unique content that would, I mean, usually one of the advantages of having just one page is the fact that it like forces you to have a more elaborative text about yourself. So, and the other advantage is the fact that once you have a page that is just about you as opposed to a page that is about several people, also Google understands the real focus of this page, and the ranking potential of this page is significantly higher than just the general management section. So I would start with that immediately. It's easy to implement. It is like a very easy, quick win, and it's something you can do immediately. Another thing I would start doing is looking at your existing LinkedIn profile. We all have, I guess we all have a LinkedIn profile, but when was the last time you really looked at your own LinkedIn profile? Is it updated? Do you feel comfortable with the way your biography and professional experience is being presented? In most cases, I guess the answer would be no, because we change, our messages change, the way we want to present ourselves change. So you should start with making sure your professional story is being told in a professional and comprehensive way, and it's updated. But that's just the basic thing. Once you took these basic steps, I think it's time to consider using LinkedIn also as a place to share articles and thought leadership pieces. Just like the example we see here of Mr. Bodas, which is an executive in TBWA. So it's not only commenting and sharing articles other wrote, but he also uses the article section within LinkedIn to share his own thought leadership pieces. And it's quite effective because it's a great place to be exposed to additional target audiences and engage with industry leaders, colleagues, and partners. So I would definitely look at that also. Now, social media in general is a subject that we can have a totally different session to speak about. We understand that working in social media is challenging because it really requires a lot of time, as opposed to LinkedIn, by the way, which one of the biggest advantages of LinkedIn that you don't have to ongoing maintain it as opposed to other social media channels. But there are many other advantages of using other social media channels, and it really depends on your personality and your preferences, and obviously your target audiences and capabilities. So really to have the ability to to find the right channel for you is very important for each and every one of you to think and decide what would be the best. Ella, would you want to add something here?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I mean, it's probably obvious that one of the main advantages of social media is that it enables you to communicate directly with your audience and create conversations. It's also an opportunity to show another side of yourself, a different side of yourself. I mean, taking Mandy Patinkin here, for example, he uses his Twitter account where he focuses mainly on the work that he's doing for refugees and social causes, and he makes great use of it. A second point is that, I mean, you need to choose, I mean, as Ran was saying earlier, you need to choose the channels that suit you. So, for example, if I'm a very political person, if I'm outspoken, if I'm really good at arguments and making my point quickly, Twitter will be easy for me. I can just like wake up and while I'm drinking my coffee, write down something and post it. If I'm a very visual person and I snap cool photos on my way to work every day, Instagram will be easy for me. Find something that's easy. And another way to make it easy is to remember that not every content that we post has to be original. You can share other people's content as long as you add, or articles that you read, as long as you add a word or two that provides your insight or your personal tone of voice, that's enough. We don't have to create something every time.
Yeah, so that's about social media, and obviously we can speak more and more about it, but I think we covered like the most basic things to take into account. Another thing I would like to speak about is using professional profiles. And I think that professional profiles is a really great way to have content online that you have full control over, that has very good potential to be ranked highly on Google, and one you don't have to maintain. So for example, looking at Richard Edelman's Crunchbase profile, and by the way, Crunchbase, I guess most of you heard about this profile. It's probably one of the leading ones, and it's a really good place to be. But there are several more. For example, AngelList and About Me. But to be honest, I don't think any of us should use more than one, max 2 profiles, because we don't want to sweat too much, and it doesn't look very, natural to have so many profiles. And the best thing is to have like a mix of results, because it really serves us in the best way in order to tell our story in a natural looking way. But I would definitely use at least one profile to tell my story and to have it up there. That's definitely something I would do. Another very important thing is to use thought leadership pieces. We should create content that is interesting, engaging, and create real value to your target audiences, just like the example we just gave a few minutes ago. That's the basic thing. Obviously, there are many platforms that we can share our thought leadership pieces. We can use a blog, our company blog, on our company website, and it's an opportunity to show your expertise in the context of your company, and by that contribute both to your company positioning and to your own personal brand. And obviously, it's also great for SEO purposes for your company website. And another platform that I would highly recommend is medium.com. I'm not sure if if everyone here knows this platform, but it's a very established blogging platform, which is being used by many entrepreneurs, business owners, and really, I would say, serious people. And the main advantages of having Medium is, first of all, it ranks very well on Google. Second of all, it doesn't require, if you have like a company blog, it usually requires you to post at least 1 or 2 articles per month. And Medium, I think you have more flexibility in publishing things in a lower pace. So it's always good to know that. And the last thing, it really opens your opinions and articles to new target audiences. So that's definitely something that I would consider. We spoke about LinkedIn. Again, great platform to do it. You can obviously publish opinion columns because it's always good to have your opinion and your thoughts on web assets that are not connected to you. You can host a podcast, everything. So everything is possible. Not everything is as easy as something else. It raises the question, how much content can you write? So don't be afraid to repurpose your content and to publish, to use same content on other platforms by just adjusting some of the content. So we can make it realistic, but using the same content or to publish content on various places can really help you promote your messages in a very effective way.
Just a word about repurposing. It is important if you if you're going to use the same content twice, it is important to rewrite it, because Google notices duplicated content and it may punish one search result if it's exactly like something else. So it is important to maybe play around with the structure or the wording, but there's no reason why not to take the same ideas and the same story and just write it again and publish it somewhere else. Moving on to the next point. We imagine that as most of you are in the PR and communications area, getting news articles out there or taking part in events is something that happens in your life. And from our perspective, it's important for us to point out that while the news itself may become old the day after and the event is over when it's over, online they can continue living for a long period of time, and they can really help elevate your online persona and enrich your story. So if you know there's an article that's going to come out, or if there's an event that's going to happen, you can write about, you can use your social media to write about it before, you can post it on your social media, you can continue talking about it later, let it continue living as long as it can. And I think the last point we wanted to talk about in this section is virtual networking. In other words, guest posting, hosting account takeovers, or taking over other people's accounts for a day, participating in podcasts. This is also a very important tool for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you're hosting someone on your blog and they're writing, then you don't have to write that week and you get a break. Secondly, you're getting exposed to new audiences, whether someone is coming to post on your blog or if you're going somewhere else, new people are seeing you, and that's always a good thing. And thirdly, you're positioning yourself within a strategic ecosystem and showing that you're involved in the community, that you collaborate with others, and that's always a good thing to show. We wanted to end off with a few practical tips that we think one should keep in mind when trying to upkeep an online presence over time. So, of course, one area that we're not going to get into and is extremely important is building a schedule. Building a schedule and keeping to it over time. But when building this schedule, we would suggest that you take the following points into account. First of all, delegate whatever you can. You work with people whom you probably trust and have skills that are very relevant in these areas. Let them treat you as a client, let them help you. If it's getting other people to rewrite something that you've already written, if it's getting your marketing team, someone from your marketing team to interview you and then put it out there. People can help on various levels, and it's important to use this because, I mean, just like your clients take you on as a team, you also need a team in order to uphold your online presence, and it's fine. Secondly, take shortcuts. We try to point out a few here along the way, and we really encourage them. There are many, you don't have to, be too diligent along the way, and it's important to remember that keeping up a steady online presence is often more important than everything you post being amazingly good. Third point is we really recommend that you iterate and refocus your strategy as you go along, because you may start focusing on various platforms, and then you'll see where people are responding, where they're responding less, where you get engagement easily. There's no point in putting too much effort into a platform that doesn't work for you. It's better to concentrate your effort where you're managing to make things happen. And last point is one that I try to remind myself every day. The internet is not a place for perfectionists. It's more important to put yourself out there, to live, to update, to be human, than for everything that you put out there to be perfect. And also, most of the things that you post, you can change afterwards if there's some mistake that you want to change. So just keep it going. I think that's about it.
I think you're right. Yeah, so if there's any question, Stephanie, I'm sure you'll take it from here. Thank you again for bearing with us for this pretty much 35 minutes.
And once again, here are our emails. If you want to get all our cool questions, we'll be happy to send them.
Great, perfect. I've actually had a few questions coming in as you were speaking. So someone has asked, should agency owners have separate and potentially different brands to that of their agencies?
So can you ask again?
Sure, of course. Should agency owners, CEOs of an agency, have separate and different brands to their agency's brand, or should they be kind of linked together?
I think they should have, there are some things that should be similar, that should be connected, but I think the separation is also very important for a couple of reasons. First of all, an agency leader may leave an agency. I mean, by the way, going back to John Ledger, who kind of almost became the mascot of T-Mobile, it'll be very interesting to see what happens now, because it was like the two really merged. So it may have its advantages, but it also creates problems. So I think, so there should be some separation. And secondly, I think with your personal brand, having a human voice, having a personal voice and an opinion, it's very, very useful. It makes it much easier to connect. And I think that's something that you can't do through a brand, through the brand's online presence. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. We've had quite a few people in the chat just saying really big thank you and how great it was. So I wanted to pass that message along. A couple more questions. So someone has asked, if your personal brand has a problem, for example, if you're involved in a business failure or you've had a scandal, or maybe if you just said something unfortunate that you regret, is there a way to repair the damage?
Well, first of all, of course, I think one of the reasons we've discussed so many ways to be out there and to use different internet platforms, this is one of the reasons for that is it really maximizes your chances to dominate Google first page and to have control over it. So it serves two purposes. The first one, it can really serve you as a shield for a potential online crisis or all kind of negative articles that could be published about you. And obviously, if you have some negative article that was already published, the more you use those different channels, the better your chances are. And obviously, you need to actively promote it. It's not just like by creating those profiles and maintaining those channels, it's not enough. But obviously, this would be the thing that would help you suppress and push down the unwanted information and replace it with more favorable content. So obviously, this is what we do. So we can definitely face those challenges.
And I think that the strategy very much depends on the specific circumstances because, for example, I think in some cases we decide not to talk about the issue, the problematic issue at all, and just try to emphasize other perspectives or other aspects of the client. But in some cases, the right thing to do is to tackle the issue directly and bring the personal stance of the person. So it really very much depends on the issue itself.
Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. We have had another question. Someone has said, let's find it. Could you please talk about TikTok? How do you think it's the best way to use it for personal branding, or even should you use it?
The question of should you use it depends on your target audience. I mean, if your target audience, like me, is in his or her 40s, then maybe TikTok isn't the right platform to focus on. But if you're trying to approach a younger target audience, then that's the place to be at the moment. If you feel comfortable being on video also.
Frankly, TikTok is not one of the leading platforms that we're using because of the type of our target audiences. Mm-hmm. But obviously, it's a very significant place to be. Mm-hmm. Again, if your target audiences are on the right ages.
Yeah, that sounds very sensible. I'm going to now call on Ian Bates, who has a question.
Hi, thank you very much, guys. That was a really very good presentation, because I've seen things like this before, which become a horrible ramble, but yours was very precise, super helpful. So thank you for that. My observation would be that there are so many people trying to do this in the marketing, communications, advertising space, that there is an enormous amount of crap out there. And it takes forever to produce this stuff, particularly if you're trying to do something original. So would you recommend focusing more on specific sectors or audiences, or go for broke and try and be the next Gary Vaynerchuk?
I'm not sure I understood the question. So are you asking it for, like, from a commercial perspective, as a company, as an agency, what would be our focuses, and how would we like to differentiate ourselves?
If I was going to develop my personal branding, because there is so much noise out there, and I think I may have some interesting opinions, but that's for other people to judge, isn't it? So is it better, bearing in mind time is limited, to focus on specific audiences for your content, or do you think you should be spreading it as wide as possible?
I've got some thoughts. Can I start?
Go ahead.
I think a few things come to mind. First of all, it depends. It depends.
That's the easiest answer.
Well, it depends. I've got to go now. It depends on a few elements. First of all, it takes me back to who you are. What would be the most authentic way for you to go? Secondly, it depends on your resources. If you're able to, create tons of high quality content that touches a wide variety of audiences, then great. But if not, then the second option would be better to really focus the audience that you're approaching and to give them something that they really need and want. And then that could be more effective, and it can later grow gradually. But I think so maybe it's three things. It's first of all, what's your goal? I mean, how important is it for you that everyone knows who you are and to become an independent brand yourself? Secondly, what's authentic to you? And third, just the focus on the audience. How can you provide the strongest value? How can you contribute the most? Because that's what will make you effective, I think.
If I can just add something, I would say that in my personal struggles with my own online branding, I think that my choice was to really focus on specific target audiences. In my case, PR professionals, because we have many business partners that are PR agency, communication consultancies in many places around the world, and a majority part of our business comes from our PR partners. So most of the content that I would produce would be more, I would say, professional content that would help me as a business owner and help Percepto to just to position us as, as experts in our fields. So that would be my choice. So yeah, eventually, if I had to recommend something, I would probably recommend to try and find and prioritize your most important target audiences and write to them.
Okay, thank you very much. That's great.
Thanks. I think we have time for one more question. So I'd like to call on Mike Gibson. I believe Mike had a question.
Yeah, hi. Hopefully you can hear me.
Great background.
Great background.
Mike Gibson in Moscow. Ella and Ran, thank you very much. That was most fascinating and particularly appreciated giving us concrete tools and steps. Very helpful. My question is about speed of comments. Ella, you said at one point, drink a coffee and tweet an answer or comment. How careful do we need to be of quick replies? Do you recommend a pause or a timeout to prevent reacting too fast and then regretting it?
Well, I guess that depends on it depends on the topics, and it depends on your personality, I think. I think in some cases, recklessness can be useful. It can draw attention to you and your personal brand. But of course, it can also be damaging. So, I mean, if you're a person who tends to answer too quickly and then regret it, it would be better to pause for a second. So it really depends on the situation and on the topic. But I think you do make a valid point, because while I was focusing on the fact that it's more important to say something and that you can always change it, that's not completely accurate. And you're right, especially I think on Twitter and also on other platforms. Once you say something, you've said it. So probably in most cases, it's better to give it another thought, just to wait a second and reread it at least once before you post.
Interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you guys. Thanks. Thank you guys so much. I'm just gonna swap over the screen sharing so I can wrap up, if that is okay. Here we go. Great. So I just, again, want to say a really big thank you to Ran. Oh, gosh, sorry. Have I got rid of that now? Oops, sorry. Let me just put that back on there. Excuse my technical pictures. Okay. In fact, do you know what? I'm just gonna, I think everyone's had your email addresses, so I'm just gonna stop sharing that and I will come back to it. But I just wanted to give a really big thank you to Ran and Ella for that great webinar. If you didn't have time to ask your question, I know there are quite a few people that wanted to ask questions and didn't have a chance. You can contact our speakers via email at ran, R-A-N, at percepto-digital.com and Ella at percepto-digital.com. In fact, I'm just going to go back and find my slide so that I can try and share that again. Again, very sorry for that. Right, so thank you all for coming. We really hope you enjoyed it. We will be holding webinars at the same time every Wednesday. The next one will be held on the 8th of July at the usual time, so that's 1 p.m. London time. Our upcoming webinar is called the NotCam Review 2020 and will be led by our very own Julian Balding. Every year, the Network One's Cannes Review reports on and analyzes the events of our industry's biggest annual gathering, the Cannes Lions. Not just the award winners, but the key themes and trends emerging from all the talks, seminars, and beachside bars of the festival. Sadly, no one went to the south of France last week, but all around the cybersphere, radical thinking has been taking place about the future of advertising, marketing, and communications in webinars, interviews, books, blogs, and media articles. So instead of a snapshot from one memorable week, we'll be bringing together the most crucial themes that have emerged over the last 3 months, the period of the pandemic so far. Sign up now to be the first to hear this report. You can find all of our webinars and upcoming webinars at thenetworkone.com/webinars. And again, a huge thank you to Ran and Ella. If you would like to contact them, you've got their contact details. They'll be happy to send you those questions. And we hope to see you at another webinar Wednesday soon. Speak to you guys later.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Bye.